welcome to the first season of the Is the Planet Doomed podcast. This is a project produced by the students of a course with the same name in the Department of Geography at Colgate University. By unpacking some of the world's most pressing and complex problems, the episodes in this podcast help answer the question, well, are we doomed? In this episode, Jack Starkey shows how a major gang problem has started overwhelming the poor nations of Central America.
Central America, one of the only regions left in the developing world where crime rates are increasing rather than decreasing. The cause of this alarming statistic may not have one root, but it has one face. Maras, the gangs of Central America. Gang culture has been rising in the region for the last couple decades and is showing very little signs of slowing down. The Maras aren't your stereotypical West Side Story gang. They are incredibly dangerous and incredibly powerful. They impact the livelihoods and way of life for people who call this region home. These gangs have created a state of instability in the region, and if left unchecked, have the potential to undermine all social, economic, and political development for these maturing nations. While these sounds may be surprising anywhere else in the world, they have become routine as night falls in San Pedro Sula. The second biggest city in Honduras is infamous for its violence. The city has been called the most dangerous in the world. It boasts the highest murder rate in the world and an astonishing 169 murders per every 100,000 people. By comparison, the city of St. Louis, Missouri, arguably one of the most dangerous cities in the U.S., has a murder rate of only about 29 per 100,000 people. This number dwarfs in comparison. Honduras has arguably been hit the hardest by the increase in gang culture in comparison to its other Central American counterparts. This is evident in the nation's crime rates. San Pedro Sula isn't the only part of Honduras infamous for violence. The nation's capital city of Tegucigalpa also has one of the highest murder rates in the world at 102.2 per every 100,000 people. The nation overall also has a murder rate of approximately 90 murders per every 100,000 people. This is higher than any other country in the world, and as a result, Honduras has been nicknamed the murder capital of the world. In the year 2012, Honduras had an estimated 20 murders a day. This is dumbfounding. Honduras is a small nation of only about 9 million people, and yet there are almost half as many murders a day here than there are in the United States, a nation that is approximately 36 times larger. Although recent statistics suggest that crime rates in Honduras are on the decline, it is believed that this data is fabricated, as it's self-reported by the government. No country is dying for the reputation of murder capital of the world. Gangs in Honduras are responsible for almost all of these murders. Rival Maras will often war with each other over territory and resources. The gangs here, however, do far more than simple murder. Gangs are known to participate in drug and weapon smuggling, human trafficking, racketeering, political corruption, and assassination, among others. The smuggling of drugs and weapons from South America to North America has largely contributed to the rise of violence and the culture. Honduras serves as a transit stop for the product. It is estimated that 79% of the drugs moving from South to North America pass through Honduras. As a result, the guns and drugs have infiltrated the streets. This cripples the people and escalates the issue of violence. This is Raquel Murcia, describing the violence in her San Pedro Sula neighborhood.
There's a lot of young boys who have been getting killed right now, innocents. It's as if we lived in a slaughterhouse. It's terrible. In the day, there are shootouts in plain sight. We hear bullets in the house.
The question is now, how did the gangs start in Honduras, and why today are they still growing? Well, first, let's examine the actual gangs operating inside the nation's borders. The two major gangs in Honduras are Barrio 18, or the 18th Street Gang, and MS-13. These two Maras actually didn't originate in Honduras. Both came from the United States, Los Angeles to be exact. The gangs were birthed by illegal immigrants desiring protection during the LA riots during the 1990s. When immigrants were jailed, they were often deported back to their homes in Central America. What they took with them was gang culture. The origin of the gangs might be clear, but why did they persist? What fostered their growth?
I was born right here in this country, and then my family went to the States and they took me. Once I was in the States, I would say that it was some type of peer pressure, and that was the reason why I joined the gang. To make a long story short, I became a drug addict. I started banging, and then I got...
That was William Lopez. Like many other gang members from Central America, he became affiliated only after moving to the United States. He was coerced into harmful practices and as an immigrant felt that he needed protection. Once these people are caught and deported, they bring with them the harmful gang culture. Increased stigma about the harm of illegal immigrants is only worsening the problem. Today in the U.S., there is a new push to keep immigrants out and to deport illegal immigrants who are already living here. This leads to an increase in gang members being sent back to their native countries. Not only this, but that leads to non-affiliated deported immigrants joining gangs back in their home countries out of fear because of the influence the gangs already have in the region.
My name is Victor. I became a gang member when I was 11. I lived in Nejapa. At 11, I committed a crazy act. At 11, how to say it, my father would get all drunk. He used to beat up my mother. I found a kitchen knife and I assassinated my father. I got a conviction for 7 years because I was a minor. Of course, if they sent me to a prison full of gang members, I had to become a gang member.
Dieron una condena de 7 años, pues claro, como metieron un penal donde había solo mareros, pues claro, yo tenía que ingresar a una pandilla.
This addresses a new problem related to gang growth. The prisons in Honduras and other Central American nations are dominated by gang members. The guards are often corrupt, and even behind the bars, the gangs are extremely powerful and influential. Inmates find themselves needing to be affiliated. They need to gain protection from attack. This includes criminals deported from the United States who find themselves in similar predicaments. Deportation and the prison system aren't the only things helping the gangs to thrive. Honduras is weak and is full of broken institutions that allow gangs to grow and prosper. One major problem is the government. Known for corruption and being generally ineffective, the political system has been able to do little to combat gangs. The two-party system is full of turmoil. There have been several coups in recent history, including the removal of President Manuel Zelaya from office in 2009. An ineffective government can do little to combat gangs. Additionally, the gangs have entered the cycle, working to keep corrupt officials in power. The gangs control large neighborhoods and city sectors and are therefore able to sway the vote. Furthermore, they often fund the campaigns of corrupt individuals who let them reign free. Another factor keeping the nation weak, allowing gangs to reign, is the weak economy. Honduras in recent history adopted neoliberal policies. This had disastrous consequences. Utilities collapsed soon after becoming privatized. They didn't have enough money to sustain themselves, and the government didn't have the money to back them either. Infrastructure collapsed following Hurricane Mitch, and much of the country remains in disrepair today. Without backing, railroads to connect the cities of Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula remain unfinished. This prevents the country from traversing difficult terrain to reach the coast. Without mass transport, Honduras will be able to export their valued natural resources, plantains and precious metals. Trade is the framework for a neoliberal state. Without it, Honduras remains unable to make money and unable to provide jobs and programs to help its people. As a result, they turn to the gangs. Today in Honduras, response to growing gang culture has generally been unsuccessful. The government is weak, and foreign aid sent in to combat the problem is often embezzled. Honduras has tried implementing anti-gang units, but these have often also been met with negative repercussions. These squads often target the youth and go on deadly night raids, following very little evidence. Additionally, over 40% of the police force in Honduras is believed to be corrupt. They have been known to accept bribes or even be a part of the gangs. It is clear how detrimental the rise of gang culture in Honduras is to the nation's development and well-being of its people. Without proper action and a shift in course, Honduras and many of its Central American neighbors face collapse with the growing threat of this deadly plague. This has been Jack Starkey with Colgate University.